Welcome to Everything Co-op, bringing you information on how cooperatives can help improve your quality of life. This show is being sponsored by the National Co-op Bank, NCB. The NCB is dedicated to strengthening communities nationwide for the delivery of banking and financial services for the nation's cooperatives, their members, and other socially responsible organizations. For more information on the power of community ownership, visit ncb.coop. That's ncb.coop. Now stay tuned for your host, Vernon Oakes.
Good morning, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes. Welcome to Everything Co-op. This morning, we have the pleasure of talking to Ron Hantz, who has created the organization Network for Developing Conscious Communities. And we're going to be talking about the conference that's coming up on June 13th through 15th in St. Paul, Minnesota. Good morning, Ron.
Good morning, Vernon.
Tell me a little bit about what is Network for Developing Conscious Communities, and why did you start that?
Well, what I saw missing was a grassroots effort to elevate the consciousness around community development in the Black community development sector. And so I just came up with the idea and have spurred the idea of that we need to elevate the consciousness of Black folks around the work that's needed to be done in Black communities. So here we are.
And how long ago was that? When did you start it?
Oh, man, goodness. Man, it seems like decades ago, but it's been 10 years now.
Okay. All right. And this conference is starting that you're doing in St. Paul. What's the title of it?
The title of the conference? Oh, the National Conference on Black Cooperative Agenda.
All right. Who are your partners?
Oh, our partner is Nexus Community Partners.
Nexus Community Partners.
Mm-hmm.
Ron, you've been doing this for several years now. How long have you been doing this conference?
Well, we started in September 21 with a virtual conference, and then we were able to move it to a physical conference in April of 22, and then we did the conference in 23 and 22 we did the conference in Baltimore. In 23 we were able to do it in Las Vegas, Nevada, and this year we're in St. Paul, Minnesota.
Okay. All right. So just right off, if somebody wants to go to this conference, what do they need to do? How do they get information about it?
Well, they can go to our website, ndccnetwork.org, and all the information is there, the sessions, information on sponsors. We're in the process of loading up information on the session presenters. But they can register right there on the website. There's a link to register on the website, and glad to have them.
So NDCC, and that stands for Network for Developing Conscious Communities.
Yes.
So it's ndccnetwork.org.
Yes. .org.
Okay, so you can go there and get information about the conference.
Yes.
All right. So what is the registration?
Oh, the registration is $375.
Okay.
And we do have scholarships available as well. I do believe the scholarship application is on the website as well.
Okay. And I see you can donate there too.
Yeah. We take donations.
Is this a 501c3 or?
Yes, we are.
So you can make donations and write it off on your taxes.
That's true. That's so true.
Network for Developing Conscious Communities. Being conscious about developing communities in the black community. Got it.
Yeah.
So this conference you just told us the first was during COVID, and then you've had 3 in-person space.
This is our third in person.
Okay. So how did this conference come about?
Well, first of all, we take no credit for the name of this conference. It was actually initiated by the Poor People's Development Foundation, which came about in 1968 during Dr. King's effort to bring attention to the poverty of Black and poor folks in the country. And so it was an organization started by Cornelius Cornbread Givens and Bernard Ruskin to bring about education about cooperatives in the communities that were needing economic opportunities, as well as bringing food to those communities as well. So we're happy to continue the legacy work of the Poor People's Development Foundation in promoting this conference.
The Poor People's Development. Wasn't their mission to create co-ops?
Yes, it was. Yeah, right. They were very instrumental in moving the legislation that created the National Cooperative Bank, which was then entitled National Consumer Cooperative Bank.
So Marion Barry was a big part of this.
Well, Barry was, and Barry had taken a lot of this work and implemented in his policy agenda around cooperatives in the District of Columbia.
Wow, that would have been interesting to have been there with that. Do you have any sense of what happened? Because I've read that they had food co-ops in multifamily buildings. They had food co-ops. The whole TOPA laws, which help people to help the tenants to buy their building, and often it was formed into a co-op. All of that was about getting people to own their own environment, to create conscious communities. Okay. Do you ever know what happened to all of that work?
Well, actually, the work went on from 68 to probably in the early 80s. And it ran into some headwind because people external to the organization had really did something illegal using the organization. And so after that, credibility went, and so the work fizzled out, and so it went away, unfortunately. Yeah. That's
interesting, because I came here about the time that happened. I knew of the person that did the embezzlement.
Yeah, yeah.
Because he used to work for the same company I did before. He worked there before I did. So okay. I knew of him before I came to D.C. Mm-hmm. And I was surprised about the embezzlement because of the person that of his history and so forth. That didn't sound like what he would do. But I had no idea this was related to cooperatives and Cornbread Givens and that whole organization.
Yeah, sad. It was just a sad blemish on the history of the work of the Poor People's Development Foundation.
All right. So today you've been taking up that work. You call this the Black Cooperative Agenda, National Conference on Black Cooperative Agenda. Mm-hmm. And what is that agenda? Well,
the agenda is simply to bring together Black, BIPOC, and other people to engage them in formation of cooperatives and using the cooperative platform to grow independently, economically, to provide services within underserved communities, to elevate the education around cooperatives. Because the Poor People's Development Foundation did a lot of work in terms of creating platforms and workshops to elevate the work around educating people about the importance of cooperatives. So we take no credit for the name of the conference. We just taking the name and just try to embellish it and bring it to a heightened level in today's environment.
Okay. So what do you expect people would get out of attending this conference?
Well, I expect them to get, first of all, the cultural celebration in terms of being able to align themselves with like-minded people culturally. Secondly, I expect them to get some importance of why it's important to share this work with the youth. Cooperatives are great vehicles for creating sustainable business ventures, great vehicles for bringing people together in collective environments. And last year at our conference, we started to embed this whole work around youth. And so that's a really important aspect of the conference. And people can expect to engage themselves with youth and hopefully take back what they learned at this conference to their own communities in terms of engaging youth in cooperative work. Thirdly, it's the networking collaboration. Again, we work so much in silos. And so it's about breaking that whole prism of working in silos and stretching yourself to work with others across economic lines, across racial lines, across income lines to bring collective energy into the space. Fourthly, it's educational opportunities because, we try to bring people into the space who have stories to share and experiences to share with individuals. And so we're looking to elevate the educational opportunities in this conference. And then we want to showcase success stories because I think that so often we don't hear about the successful work that's going on in our Black communities. And so we want to elevate those success stories out to larger platform of individuals so they can learn and grow from the efforts others have done. There's a saying about not recreating the wheel. Mm-hmm. And so you don't have to recreate the wheel. You can follow the work of others and replicate that work. And lastly, this work can't go on without some work around policy. So we have sessions in every conference we've done around policy advocacy because we feel though we have to move our politicians to understand the work of cooperatives and how cooperatives can be meaningful in terms of regenerating communities, regenerating people. And so we'll talk a little bit about, return to citizens because that's a really important aspect of the work that we're doing as well in this cooperative space.
All right, bro. That sounds like a lot. Cultural celebration, including youth, networking, educational, providing success stories, and then the whole sense of advocacy and policy reform. All right. And you're doing this over a 3-day period?
Yes, over 3 days.
June the 13th, 14th, and 15th.
Mm-hmm. And actually, we started on the 12th because we have a reception at the Pimento Grill there in St. Paul. And so those who arrive early, we certainly encourage them to come out and do some networking, meet others, like-minded people. So we'll have a reception on the 12th to kick off the conference.
All right. So let's go to some of these success stories. Can you give me one success story that people will hear about in the conference?
Well, they'll hear about the Chai Fresh Food Co-op in Chicago, formed by returning women who came out of incarceration to gather themselves together to work on developing a food industry there in Chicago. They'll hear about that story and the continuation of the work that they're doing in terms of bringing people that have been incarcerated back into the community. And so what that means is that it's a real success story that people will certainly align themselves with. They hear the mayor of
Wait, before you move off of Chai Fresh, just want to add a couple things there. Is that 5 returning citizens, 5 women, started Chai Fresh in Chicago, and they provide food for institutions like churches and schools, and there was a huge need during COVID, so they ended up starting faster than they intended to because of the need for this food. But then they had been toying with doing a housing co-op for these members that work there, and also a babysitting co-op. I'm not sure where they are in creating these other co-ops, but it's just interesting to see that the needs of these returning citizens is getting a job, child care, housing, and they're creating co-ops to help them meet these needs. And that's one of the reasons, if not the main reason, for creating a co-op, is to solve some community need. I'm glad you brought that one up because it's a fascinating story.
Yeah.
And
well, I'd have to credit you with sharing with me at a forum that I did in Baltimore some years ago, why do cooperatives? And you were very implicit about laying it out that cooperatives serve people. They serve the need. So any business can be a cooperative business. So yeah, I like to credit you with sharing that with me some years ago.
Yeah, there are basically four types of co-ops. If I could quickly say this, is that there are four types of co-ops. If the co-op is owned and controlled by the employees, as Shy Fresh is, then it's called a worker co-op. They own it, they control it, they say what happens to the money, they get the financial reports, they make the decisions, they create the policies for the business. So they're in there. That's a worker co-op. And then, so any business that have workers could be a worker co-op. I've heard some people say, Ron, that if you have over 500 employees, then it's hard to have a worker co-op. I don't buy that. I don't buy that at all. I think any number of employees you can have a worker co-op. You just figure out how to govern it. Then the second one is called a consumer co-op, and that's when a consumer owns and controls the business. And that's a housing co-op. The people that live there own and control the business. Most food co-ops are consumer co-ops. Some of them are worker co-ops. I don't know if you know Glut here, right, in Maryland.
Yes, in Silver Spring, yeah.
Yeah, it is a food co-op that's owned by the employees. Then there's some hybrid in food co-ops that's owned by the consumer and the people that shop there and the people that work there. So those are the main two of them, is consumer and worker co-ops. And the other two is if people get to come together, and a lot of times it's business. Farmers have been using this a lot. They come together and market their products so they can get to markets that an individual farmer couldn't get to. They form a business, and their whole function is to market the products. And they're also called producer co-ops because they may, like if Cabot Cheese, as an example, there are 900 farmers own the business, and they send their milk to Cabot Cheese. They will sell milk, they sell cheese, yogurt, and other things. So it's a marketing and consumer co-op. Then the fourth one is a purchasing co-op. And that's when a group, and a lot of times it's farmers, but they come together to purchase what they need to create whatever they're producing. There is a black-owned, women-owned co-op in Pittsburgh that are artists. It's a combo marketing and purchasing co-op. They will pool their resources and buy what they need to make jewelry and paintings, and together they created a storefront to sell these, and they have a presence online to where people can buy their product. So these are any business you can think about can be a co-op. Yeah, and I do champion that. Okay, all right. So Shy Fresh is just, I'm wanting to come just to hear them. I've had the consultant that helped them create the business on this show a couple times, but I haven't had any of the worker owners on the show, and that's whom I would like to meet and talk to. So what other success stories can one get and hear by coming to this conference in St. Paul, Minnesota on June the 13th through the 15th?
Well, there'll be a discussion around food. We have Corey Jr., who's working with Simper Foods up in Detroit market. He'll be moderating a panel discussion on food and the sustainability of that marketplace. We're having also...
Wait a minute, before you move off of that, can you give me what organization he's with? Because I didn't catch it.
Simper, SEMPA, Simper Foods.
Okay. I don't know them. I know that the Detroit People's Food Co-op just opened yesterday.
Yes.
But Simper, I don't know them. I'd like to... Okay.
Mm-hmm.
And that person's name again?
Corey Jr.
Okay. All right. Tell us more. What else can people get by?
Well, we're going to have a discussion on breaking in silos. And again, creating these bridges of connectivity among Black-led organizations. So we're going to explore, that space in terms of what it means to be in a collective environment, the challenges that we confront, and the outcomes that we can create. And of course, we'll have John Hostlar with Rockdale Capital. He'll be there talking about his work in terms of building out a new framework for a CDFI to fund the work of Black and other cooperatives in the space that he's cultivated.
So connectivity among Black businesses, what does it mean to be in a collective space? I have a sense of what you mean there, but can you break that down a little bit? What does it mean to be in a collective space?
Well, for so long, we've been told as people that we can't get along, that Black folks just can't get along, can't work together. And I'm a disputer of that. I believe that Black folks can work together and have worked together, because if we couldn't have worked together, we wouldn't have been able to sustain ourselves through these years. And so in the collective space, it means to me that you bring your intentionality into a space where you're willing to share your values, share your insights, be able to listen to others' viewpoints. And so to me, that cultivates the whole essence of what it means to be in the collective space. So we're looking forward to cultivating that. We've added some nuances to this conference that really people are going to be really happy and elated to be engaged with culturally. And so we're looking forward to really having the opportunity to share out what it means to be in a collective space.
So I like what you start off with, is because I was told early on, 7, 8, 9, 10 years old, that Black folks are like crabs in a barrel. As soon as one starts climbing up, the other ones would pull them back down. And that has not been my experience either.
Yeah.
There have been so many people, Black people, that have helped me in my career, in my journey. And we couldn't have gotten through slavery without helping each other. We wouldn't have the historical Black colleges and universities. We wouldn't have churches. There's so many, the Susus, people forming banks, if you will, putting money in together, and each person getting their share of the pot on a given month. So we've shown throughout history that we work together. We've had to work together. So yes, I totally agree with you, and that's a great.
Yeah, well, that's one of the fallacies of racism, and a racist attitude about a people, and so they continue to propagate that whole misconception that we can't work together. But if we couldn't have worked together, we couldn't have survived this long in this country under the circumstances that we've been inflicted by.
Okay. Listen, we're going to have to take our first break. We're going to come back after the break and talk to Ron some more about what people can expect from this conference. And recall, it's a $375 registration fee, and we're going to talk about what you get with your registration fee. But we'll be right back. Please don't touch that dial.
News Talk 1450 WOL AM, where information is power.
Welcome back, everybody. This is Vernon Oakes, and the program is Everything Co-op. We're talking to Ron Hantz, who's with the Network for Developing Conscious Communities, and we're talking about the conference that they are putting on. This is their fourth conference, the third one in-person conference. It's going to be in St. Paul, Minnesota on June 13th through the 15th. We've been talking about some of the things that one can get out of this, but you can go to their webpage, which is ndccnetwork.org. And Ron, we've been on the air now for 10 and a half years. And National Co-op Bank has been our sponsor that whole time. They've been a great partner. NCB's mission is to support and be an advocate for America's cooperatives and their families, especially in low-income communities, by providing innovative financial and related services. So we like having them as a sponsor, and I see that NCB is a sponsor of the conference.
Yes.
Great. Okay. So what we were talking about before we took the break were some of the success stories. And we talked about Shy Fresh. What are some other success stories that people can get? Now, we talked about Shy Fresh, we talked about food, and we talked about working together, how we can work together, and what does it mean to be in collective space that black folks have throughout, I would say the beginning of time, have worked together and support each other and help each other succeed. So you started talking about CDFI and John Holesclaw. Can you tell me a little bit more about what he's going to be doing in the conference?
Well, he's going to be moderating a panel discussion. I don't recall which one it is, but he's going to be moderating a panel discussion. John was a vice president with National Cooperative Bank and was able to take his vision of establishing a CDFI that would focus on providing resources, financial resources, within the space of black and brown cooperatives. So we're happy to have John at the conference this year. He's been a long-time supporter of our work over the years. So we're happy to have him again, being able to present and share his expertise, experiences around financing, around financial sustainability of black and brown cooperatives.
All right, money's always important. Okay. That would be a conference, and I really like John Holesclaw. He's a good guy. Yeah,
John's a good guy. Mm-hmm.
All right, so you're doing some work on, well, you mentioned it's getting youth involved. How are you doing that?
Well, we've been able to, through our partner in St. Paul, Nexus Community Partners, connect with a group called Youth Prize.
Youth what?
And Youth Prize.
Okay.
Youth Prize is an organization that focuses on building the sustainability and capacity to advocate on their own behalf, particularly in the cooperative space. So, from my understanding, this organization and the youth that's involved with the organization have been instrumental in two major pieces of legislation getting passed through the Minnesota House of Delegates.
Wow.
So we're happy to have them to share their work and engage their work, because we know that this work goes nowhere unless we can pass it on to the youth. This work doesn't go anywhere unless we can pass it on to youth, embed them in their own destiny, their own self-sustainability. So that's what we're hoping to ascertain out of this youth movement, as a movement to engage more youth in cooperative work. So we're happy to have them with us this year, and hopefully we'll be able to expand it beyond just St. Paul, but expand this work around youth nationally. That's our goal. Mm-hmm.
I would love to see us get co-ops in the school systems, whether it's elementary, middle school, or high school, and college.
Yeah.
To where those students and create their own co-ops and manage and run them. And I like the learning where experiential learning, the experience of running a business, in particular co-op, with all of the different things that one learns, like how to get along, how to resolve conflict, and
yes.
So
that's so important, Vernon. That's so important. Some lessons that we didn't learn as youth growing up, but we have the opportunity to embed that in our youth today. What it means, to, particularly during this time, we're seeing so much division among the youth in terms of bringing them under one umbrella to share and to collaborate and to learn from each other. It's going to be really remarkable to see this group come together and share out their work nationally, and hopefully with the goal of developing youth enterprises, youth cooperative enterprises nationwide.
Love it, bro. Love it. So I got 3 or 4 reasons for me to be there, particularly this whole youth thing. I'd like to be in conversations about how we can get young people to understand co-ops and get this early on for all of the reasons we've already talked about. All right, So what are you doing in the housing space, co-op housing?
Well, we just, in the last year, have developed the Ella Baker Women's Business Center here in Baltimore. And so that business center is about creating entrepreneur opportunities for women of color and low-income women. But also, too, it's going to be able to offer us a space in a community where we're going to be able to engage in comprehensive community development. So part of that comprehensive community development is the thought of creating affordable housing and maintaining affordable housing in this community, which we're located in Irvington in the Baltimore City network.
Okay. Cultural celebrations, important of youth, educational success stories. Any other success stories you got?
Well, I'm looking to learn about more of these success stories myself.
Okay. Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking to learn more about the success stories. And Elizabeth Carter, who's doing work up in Chicago, who's an attorney, who's working in a space of cooperatives, who's lending her legal expertise to grow and facilitate cooperatives in Chicago, as well as the work that Renee Hatch is doing in Chicago in terms of their building out a solidarity economy in Chicago among worker cooperatives, in Chicago. Stacey Sutton, in terms of work she's doing, and you've had these women on your show in the research, because this work doesn't go anywhere unless we get embedded with research. And so Stacey's doing a hell of a job in terms of echoing out the importance of documenting and categorizing this work that she's doing around Black cooperatives and around cooperatives in general.
So, Ron, when you say a co-op ecosystem, what are you talking about?
Well, I'm talking about all the components that help grow cooperatives: finance, organizational training, the fact that you have building out the frameworks to help grow the cooperative system. So in an ecosystem, Vernon, for me, and as I see it, there are components that are needed to embellish and to grow this work around cooperatives. So you need financing, you need technical systems, you need other wraparound services you need co-op trainers, you need co-op developers. And so all these components, even though they operate independently, they operate collectively together to grow the ecosystem around cooperatives.
Okay, you're the first person that I heard talk about an ecosystem, and I didn't know what you were talking about. So you said that I help you with some knowledge about reasons co-ops exist. You helped me to understand this ecosystem, but what made me think about it is when you talked about Stacy Sutton, because she's doing research on the co-op ecosystem in different cities. And so I because I didn't know what it was, I wrote down what I heard her say an ecosystem is, and it's everything you've talked about, and it's the co-ops that are in a community. Take Baltimore. It's what worker co-ops are in Baltimore, what consumer co-ops, what marketing co-ops, what purchasing co-ops are in Baltimore. And then you look at the co-op support, which you talked about, training organizations, technical support, financial, legal, and policies, and the advocacy. So when you look at everything in the community, and again, I heard you say the word, and I didn't know what you were talking about, and Stacy Sutton, with her research, helped me to understand it's all of these components. When you look at a community, and you can say these are the co-ops that are in existence today, and through the sixth principle of co-ops, which is cooperation among co-ops, these co-ops will automatically help other co-ops, the ones in existence and the help ones form. So you have some resources there, both in terms of knowledge and potentially funding. And then you look at where are these organizations that do the training, that does the technical support or provide the financial or legal, and does the advocacy work. So that's what she taught me with her research, and she's been on this show a couple times. Fascinating. And so thank you for teaching me about co-op ecosystems, and I thank her for telling me what it was.
Well, one of the sanities about the ecosystem is that we don't have many people of color who are actually co-op developers. And so that is something that we have to address and really pay some attention to. How do we grow more people of color to actually become certified co-op developers, where they can take co-ops from initial stages to stages of growth and development. And so we have to really work at building out the framework so that we can get more people of color engaged in this work of being co-op developers. Because that's how we're going to grow the ecosystem. Having people out there who understand what's needed to grow a cooperative and can provide the skill sets that those cooperatives need to actually spur their growth and development.
So how does one become a co-op developer?
Well, it's strange because there's no
school.
There's no certified program out here that you can go to and say you go through and get certified as being a co-op developer. And that's what's needed. And so I've had discussions with people throughout the industry over the last several years about coming together and trying to pool our resources around a collective effort to put an institution in place that can certify people as co-op developers. And so I'm still hammering away at it.
Yeah, I think that's fascinating. You know that if you go to current schools, colleges, universities, they don't teach co-ops for the most part. You find one every now and then to teach something about co-ops. And more often than not is not in the business school. So creating an institution that would train and certify co-op developers. That's fascinating thought, sir. I like that.
Well, it's needed. It's truly, truly needed, particularly in communities of color. And, the challenge is that it takes time. And so if you got someone that's willing to do the work, how do you can take them through this whole process and land them where they need to be landed with a credential that they can use in the marketplace to grow themselves professionally. So that's one of my pet peeves in terms of what I like to see happen in the space in terms of co-op developers.
I would like that too. So as I've traveled around, you have cooperative centers, cooperative development centers. Mm-hmm. And most of those are funded by Department of Agriculture.
Yes.
And they're in rural spaces, not urban. Every now and then they may be rural and urban spaces. But in these community cooperative development centers, how do you get some centers that would create a certificate program? Because that's the only place I could see it happening right now, unless you just start a whole different institution. And then it's where would you get your funding?
Well, it would take the coming together of particularly the federal and private sector. Federal agencies such as HUD, USDA. I saw this back in the 90s when I was doing housing council. And everybody had their own platform for what they thought was a housing council. But it wasn't until Fannie Mae, Freddie Mac, HUD came together to say, okay, let's develop a curriculum that the industry began to grow. And people begin to grow in the industry. So I'm saying that same paradigm could be created in terms of being able to create avenues where people can go to vigorous training programs to get the certification, to get the professional credit. See, that's what it means for me, getting the professional credit to say, hey, I'm a certified co-op developer, and I can take that credential wherever I go. Let it augment the work that I'm doing. But it's going to take some time, some effort to make that a realizable venture for co-op developers.
The few cooperative developers that I know are extremely busy.
Yeah.
There's more demand for co-op developers than there are co-op developers. So, yeah, there's a need. And I don't know any black co-op developers. So, yeah.
No. I'm still looking. I'm still looking.
All right. You brought up a great opportunity here. A great opportunity. All right. So you're going to be looking for success stories also that you are going to be bringing forth.
Yeah, because I think this year, Vernon, I will say that this year is the first year that we really put some systems in place that will carry this conference further. And so I give credit to our partners up in St. Paul, Nexus, for bringing that intentionality us to gather around what it means to create some systems and launch some new initiatives around system building. So we really have embedded and taken on this conference with a different attitude, a different perspective than ever before.
Okay. Now you have mentioned before, but I'd like to talk about a little bit more that Mayor Melvin Carter III will be speaking on Friday morning.
Yes.
Day 2 of the program. He's the first African American mayor of St. Paul.
That's right.
Do you know where he is as it relates to co-ops?
Well, Mayor Carter has deemed St. Paul as the co-op capital of the world.
Wait a minute. He said what?
So, he's deemed St. Paul as the co-op capital of the world. So he's really, really, really digging deep down, working with our partner Nexus and others in terms of bringing co-ops into the ecosystem, into the community development ecosystem into St. Paul. So yeah. So I'm be very interested to hear what he has to say, because I see it in his work and his effort in terms of what he's charged his agencies to do. Mm-hmm.
The co-op capital of the world.
Yeah.
I wonder what Madison...
ambitious.
Yeah, I wonder what Madison, Wisconsin, Boston, Austin, Texas would say about that. New York has been doing a lot of co-op development too. But I like that idea. Now, Marion Barry said that D.C. would be the co-op demonstration city back in the days that we were talking about with Cornbread Givens. Yeah. So, okay, now you're giving me a whole nother reason for wanting to be there. Mayor Melvin Carter III, St. Paul as the co-op capital of the world.
Yeah.
Love to see what all he has planned to create that.
Yeah. Well, they're a very, I tell you, I've learned in my only visit to St. Paul, which was a couple months ago, when I went to visit and meet with our partner and meet some other partners on the ground, is that he's a very ambitious young man and very insightful young man with visionary ideas. And so I'm really supportive of what he has deemed as his mantra into the world of cooperatives. Recently in Minnesota, Uber and Lyft had talked about pulling out.
Say that again.
Uber and Lyft had talked about pulling out of Minnesota.
Okay.
Yeah, and so what the reaction has been is that they're now exploring a driver co-op as a replacement for Uber and Lyft.
So would Uber and Lyft go to another city, or they're just...
Well, they're talking about, because there was some legislation about workers' salary and giving workers more of a leeway in terms of what they were getting in terms of their percentage of the ride. And so Uber and Lyft said, I guess they figured, well, we're happy with where we are in terms of what we're paying people, but they're not paying people enough for them to have livable wages. And so with this legislation coming about, they have threatened, I don't think they've done it yet, but they're threatened to move out of the state.
So there's a couple taxi co-ops where the drivers own it throughout the U.S. And so it'd be interesting as other taxi co-ops get started in St. Paul or Minnesota, wherever throughout.
Yeah. Well, in St. Paul, they reached out to a co-op of taxi drivers in New York to have them provide some expertise and knowledge building around what it would take to grow a co-op taxi business in St. Paul, in Minnesota.
So here's a perfect place. We probably have just a little time left, but this taxi business, Uber and Lyft. So you end up with a corporation that extracts the money, extracts the profit, and their goal is to take as much profit as they can, and one of the ways they can get more and more profit is by paying the employees as little as possible, as low as possible. Yeah. So what you do is you say, okay, Lyft and Uber, move. Okay, get out of here. And let's create a worker cooperative of taxi drivers. So you don't have the corporation, the capitalistic corporation in the mix. Mm-hmm. So they don't get the money. And then that money can flow down to the employees through what they get paid, what percentage they get paid, and if there's a surplus or profit, they can get a percentage of that. Okay, yeah. That's a great way of talking about the benefits of cooperation. Sir, minute left. Can you give a message to people, tell people what you really want them to know about?
Well, I'm looking for people to show up intentional, open-minded, receptive to exploring endless possibilities of what cooperatives can do and how we can better utilize cooperatives within the space of developing economically sustainable businesses in the Black community. And also to use co-op as a way to bring back those returning citizens who would never get a traditional job.
Bro, we gotta stop it at that.
Yeah.
Thank you. Everybody, we'll see you next Thursday. Please live cooperatively.
The preceding program was paid for by Everything Co-op.